Chapter 25, the final chapter in Mostly Harmless. Thank God. "Just there, number 42, shouted Ford Prefect to the taxi driver. "Right here." The taxi lurched to a halt, and Ford and Arthur jumped out. They had stopped at quite a number of cash dispensers on the way, and Ford chucked a fistful of money through the window at the driver. The entrance to the club was dark, smart, and severe. Only the smallest little plaque bore its name. Members knew where it was, and if you weren't a member, then knowing where it wasn't any help to you. Ford Prefect was not a member of Stavros, though he had once been to Stavros' other club in New York. He had a very simple method of dealing with establishments of which he was not a member. He simply swept in as soon as the door was opened, pointed back at Arthur, and said, "It's okay, he's with me." He bounded down the dark, glossy stairs, feeling very fruity in his new shoes. They were suede, and they were blue, and he was very pleased that in spite of everything else going on, he had been sharp-eyed enough to spot them in a window from the back of a speeding taxi. "I thought I told you not to come here." "What?" said Ford. A thin, ill-looking man wearing something baggy and Italian was walking up the stairs past them, lighting a cigarette, and had stopped suddenly. "Not you," he said. "Him." He looked straight at Arthur, then seemed to become a little confused. "Excuse me," he said. "I think I must have mistaken you for someone else." He started on up the stairs again, but almost immediately turned around once more, even more puzzled. He stared at Arthur. "Now what?" said Ford. "What did you say?" "I said now what?" repeated Ford irritably. "Yes, I think so," said the man, and swayed slightly and dropped the book of matches he'd been carrying. His mouth moved weakly, then he put his hand to his forehead. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm trying desperately to remember which drug I've just taken, but it must be one of those ones that mean you can't remember." He shook his head and turned away again and went up toward the men's restroom. "Come on," said Ford. He hurried on downstairs, with Arthur following nervously in his wake. The encounter had shaken him badly, and he didn't know why. He didn't like places like this. For all of the dreams of earth and home he had had for years, he now badly missed his hut on Lamuella with his knives and his sandwiches. He even missed old Thrashbarg. "Arthur!" It was the most astounding effect. His name was being shouted in stereo. He twisted to look one way. Up the stairs behind him he saw Trillian hurrying down toward him in her wonderfully rumpled rimplon. She was looking suddenly aghast. He twisted the other way to see what she was looking suddenly aghast at. At the bottom of the stairs was Trillian wearing... No, this was Trisha. Trisha that he had just seen, hysterical with confusion, on television. And behind her was Random, looking more wild-eyed than ever. Behind her, in the recesses of the smart, dimly lit club, the other clientele of the evening formed a frozen tableau, staring anxiously up at the confrontation on the stairs. For a few seconds, everyone stood stock still. Only the music from behind the bar didn't know how to stop throbbing. "The gun she is holding," said Ford quietly, nodding slightly towards Random, "is a Wabbanutta 3. It was in the ship she stole from me. It's quite dangerous, in fact. Just don't move for a moment. Let's just everybody stay calm and find out what's upsetting her." "Where do I fit?" screamed Random suddenly. The hand holding the gun was trembling fiercely. Her other hand delved into a pocket and pulled out the remains of Arthur's watch. She shook it at them. "I thought I would fit here," she cried, "on the world that made me, but it turns out that even my mother doesn't know who I am." She flung the watch violently aside, and it smashed into the glasses. Behind the bar, scattering its innards. Everyone was very quiet for a moment or two. "Random," said Trillian quietly from up on the stairs. "Shut up!" shouted Random. "You abandoned me." "Random, it is very important that you listen to me and understand," persisted Trillian quietly. "There isn't very much time. We must leave. We must all leave." What are you talking about? We're always leaving. She had both hands on the gun now, and both were shaking. There was no one in particular she was pointing it at. She was just pointing it at the world in general. Listen, said Trillian again. I left you because I went to cover a war for the network. It was extremely dangerous. At least I thought it was going to be. I arrived, and the war had suddenly ceased to happen. There was a time anomaly, and listen, please listen. A reconnaissance battleship had failed to turn up. The rest of the fleet was scattered in some farcical disarray. It's happening all the time now. I don't care. I don't want to hear about your bloody job, shouted Random. I want a home. I want to fit somewhere. This is not your home, said Trillian, still keeping her voice calm. You don't have one. None of us have one. Hardly anybody has one anymore. The missing ship I was just talking about. The people of that ship don't have a home. They don't know where they are from. They don't even have any memory of who they are or what they are for. They are very lost and very confused and very frightened. They are here in this solar system, and they are about to do something very misguided because they are so lost and confused. We must leave now. I can't tell you where there is to go to. Perhaps there isn't anywhere, but here is not the place to be. Please, one more time, can we go? Random was wavering in panic and confusion. It's all right, said Arthur gently. If I'm here, we're safe. Don't ask me to explain just now, but I am safe. So you are safe, okay? What are you saying? Said Trillian. Let's all just relax, said Arthur. He was feeling very tranquil. His life was charmed, and none of this seemed real. Slowly, gradually, Random began to relax and to let the gun down, inch by inch. Two things happened simultaneously. The door to the men's room at the top of the stairs opened, and the man who had accosted Arthur came out sniffing. Startled at the sudden movement, Random lifted the gun again, just as a man standing behind her made a grab for it. Arthur threw himself forward. There was a deafening explosion. He fell awkwardly as Trillian threw herself down over him. The noise died away. Arthur looked up to see the man at the top of the stairs gazing down at him with a look of utter stupefaction. You, he said. Then slowly, horribly, he fell apart. Random threw the gun down and fell to her knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Tricia went to her. Trillian went to her. Arthur sat on the stairs with his head between his hands and had not the faintest idea what to do. Ford was sitting on the stair beneath him. He picked something up, looked at it with interest, and passed it up to Arthur. This mean anything to you? He said. Arthur took it. It was the book of matches that the dead man had dropped. It had the name of the club on it. It had the name of the proprietor of the club on it. It looked like this. Stavro Mueller Beta. He stared at it for some time as things began slowly to reassemble themselves in his mind. He wondered what he should do, but he only wondered it idly. Around him people were beginning to rush and shout a lot, but it was suddenly very clear to him that there was nothing to be done, not now or ever. Through the new strangeness of noise and light, he could just make out the shape of Ford Prefect sitting back and laughing wildly. A tremendous feeling of peace came over him. He knew that at last, for once and forever, it was now all finally over. In the darkness of the bridge at the heart of the Vogon ship, Prostetnik Vogon Jeltz sat alone. Lights flared briefly across the external vision screens that lined one wall. In the air above him, the discontinuities in the blue and green watery sausage shape resolved themselves. Options collapsed, possibilities folded into each other, and the whole at last resolved itself out of existence. A very deep darkness descended. The Vogon captain sat immersed in it for a few seconds. "Light," he said. There was no response. The bird, too, had crumpled out of all possibility. The Vogon turned on the light himself. He picked up the piece of paper again and placed a little tick in the little box. Well, that was done. His ship slunk off into the inky void. In spite of having taken what he regarded as an extremely positive piece of action, the Grebulon leader ended up having a very bad month after all. It was pretty much the same as all the previous months, except that there was now nothing on the television anymore. He put on a little light music instead. The end. So, thank you for joining me on this has been a Now Read This production of Mostly Harmless by Douglas Adams, read by Shazam Watkins. I must say, this one I did not enjoy, but I did it for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I did my best to make it all go well and splendidly. Okay, so, yeah, I'm just honestly glad it's over now. I really probably will never read that book again. I'm not bitter about the fact that I had to read it or anything. I'm actually glad I read it for you guys. I know somebody complained about comments, but I say what I want, so enjoy it or don't. But otherwise, I really just think it's a bitter book. I think it's kind of like just a very dark, pointless book. I find a few parts funny. There's probably 5 or 6 lines in it that I think are interesting and kind of clever and worthy of Douglas's masterpiece of this series in a lot of ways. But for some reason, it's not close to my heart. In my mind, this book doesn't exist. It folded itself out of existence in the plural zone, and it's just part of the bad line of the universe. And actually, the books ended in the previous volume. So long and thanks for all the fish. I may be rambling right now, but I just figured an explanation was due because it's been a while since I read it. I'm just reminded of why I don't like it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know a lot of people like this. It's okay if you like it. That's fine. I just really don't. And I'm kind of almost sad that it was written because it leaves things on this just dumb, cucky kind of ending. I just think that it's not worthy. It's nowhere near as good as any of the 4 previous books. It's nowhere near as good as any of the Dirk Gently books. And I just feel like Douglas must have written this one at a bad time in his life. But I guess it is him. It doesn't feel like him to me, but it is him. So I guess at least we got one more book, but it's one book I could do without. And honestly, I think that may be the last time I ever read that book. That's how much I really don't like it. And even the humorous parts are too few and far between for me to be, for it to be redeemed kind of in my eyes. But hey, I'm glad. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. And I did do my best. I wasn't slacking. It's just hard for me to make this one interesting or exciting or humorous for some reason. It feels really dry. I may even just sell the copy that I have or give it away and pretend that it doesn't exist. All right, I'm probably going overboard. But thank you for joining me. I am in the middle of working on my next professional audiobook for Mike Ma. It is called Gothic Violence. It will be available most likely in August or September, depending on all the parts and things. It'll probably be the most, maybe the hardest work on a book that I've ever done, just because I plan on doing some special things with it. I edited Gothic Violence this time, and I did the audiobook for Harassment Architecture, which was the volume before Gothic Violence. And I know a lot of you are looking forward to that. And so I've kind of decided that I want to do another audiobook on my channel that's not fiction. I need a break from English accent. I'm just getting a little sick of it. and I want to try something else. I'm going to be recording Sun and Steel next by Yukio Mishima. It's kind of like a philosophical, semi-autobiographical, almost novel, I guess. And it's pretty short. But at this point, because I'm focusing so hard on Gothic violence and getting the audiobook for this one done, then I don't know how much I'll be uploading this month as far as audiobooks per week. I may kind of take a quick break from the audiobook stuff and just do book reviews or just update you on progress, but I'll still try to get 2 videos out per week. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate the support. It's been fun doing consistent uploads again, and I plan on continuing that into the future, no matter what comes. So anyway, I love you guys. Hope you enjoyed the book. Thanks for the requests. I'm not mad at you guys for choosing that I record this one. I'm just mad at Douglas for writing an inferior novel. All right. Much love. Thank you for joining me. May the good blood guide your way, and I will speak to you soon.